My name is John Passfield, and the title of this reading will be Macbeth, Video 8, The Reflective Journal. This is my novel, Lord and Lady Macbeth, full of scorpions is my mind. But in this video, I'm going to read from the journal which I wrote as a response to the novel, to the rough draft of the novel, as I was polishing it before sending it on to my publisher. The title of the journal is The Making of Lord and Lady Macbeth, full of scorpions is my mind, and it can be found and accessed for free on my website, johnpassfield.ca, all one word. The novel is 45,000 words, and the journal is 66,000 words. So reading the novel, polishing the novel, and thinking about the novel led to a bigger book than the novel itself. In this reading, I'm going to present 5 passages as a sample of what the Macbeth journal contains. So here's the first passage that I selected from the journal. I feel that I'm at my peak in terms of the development of a cluster of techniques which will work to allow me to write the poetic novel of our time. After completing my last novel, Terry Fox, Somewhere the Hurting Must Stop. Here's that one. I had completed that novel. I wrote some chapters for a book, which I will add to and eventually publish as the poetic novel. It details the origins and evolution of the techniques which I have developed over the writing of these 19 novels. Essentially, the techniques provide the deepening imagery which serves the main character or characters of a novel to interpret the imagery of the surface of their lives and thoughts. Well, the poetic novel, which I called the Poetic Novel 1 because I'm working on a second one, is on my website. It's not a printed book. I can't hold it up. It's not for sale. But if you go to johnpassfield.ca and look for the Poetic Novel 1, there's a whole book there which you can have a look at. 19 novels I write in this note. I now have 29 novels and 2 novellas since this is a couple of years ago. Okay. Passage number 2 from the Macbeth journal. The surface of the lives and thoughts of characters provides the prose novel. The surface of the lives and thoughts of characters plus deepening imagery provides the poetic novel. So that's the essential difference between the prose novel and the poetic novel. Same surface lives, but deepening imagery added makes for a prose novel. Deepening imagery is a function of the mind of every human being, though most of us, aside from a glimpse or two of last night's dream or nightmare, remain unaware of this continuous process of interactive imagery in our minds. Within the last 4 or 5 novels, I have felt that the cluster of techniques which I have developed is enough to allow me to write the poetic novel of our time, which has always been a goal for me during the writing of the earlier novels. Passage number 3. The flexibility of these techniques provides the questions for me as I begin a new novel topic, as I adapt these techniques to each image query on an individual novel basis. For instance, there are techniques in this novel, the Macbeth novel that I'm planning, or that I'm reviewing, for which I employed the same labels as I did when I was engaged in the writing process for Job, the cornerstone of the universe. So 2 very different topics. Here's the book that came out of that topic, Job, the cornerstone of the universe, Job and Macbeth, using the same image categories but adapting them to fit the new topic. So Job, the cornerstone of the universe, Bethune, the only person alive in the world, okay, and where is it? Okay, and Terry Fox, Somewhere the Hurting Must Stop. So all 3, 4 now with Macbeth of these novels have different topics, so I take the techniques and adjust them to suit the topic. That's the point there, which have yielded quite a different effect when applied to the world of the 2 Macbeths. So the techniques that worked for those novels with modifications, now with modifications, work for the newer novels. So technique and content, matching them up. That's the challenge. It's really fascinating. It used to be nerve-wracking, and now it's kind of enjoyably fascinating. 4. Passage number 4. After getting the idea for the topic of the two Macbeths as alternating characters who are being attacked mentally by stinging image scorpions, so the scorpions in the mind are images which are stinging the mind, I looked at the play and made a list of topics for the chapters. I preferred a novel of 50,000 words and 15 chapters, so that's a form that I started with, and I modified it. 15 chapters divided into 50,000 words requires about 3,300 words per chapter. Because the theme was to be the relationship between the two Macbeths as one person, the two Macbeths as two separate and distinct persons, and the interaction between those two concepts, I wanted the two Macbeths to live through the same events as chapters as was possible. This gave me 16 chapters, so 8 chapters each, alternating. Macbeth, Lady Macbeth. For 2 or 3 character novels, though, I usually add an extra chapter, so one of the main characters can frame the told story. So Macbeth gets 1 extra chapter. This gives me a 17-chapter novel. He frames the story, but inside that frame, they each get equal chapters. So these are decisions that I make as I'm planning a novel, and I'm reflecting on it here as I'm reading the novel and polishing it. Okay, the 5th and last passage that I selected from the Macbeth Journal. My belief is that we think in imagery at the deepest levels of our minds. All people do this, but some people are more in touch with the imagery of their subconscious minds. And some people under great stress think not so much in the prose of our most conscious thoughts, but in the poetry of our most subconscious thoughts. The Shakespearean innovation is to show his characters as people whose everyday speech draws on a blending of their prose-making surface minds and their image-making deeper minds. So, Shakespeare's characters don't speak as we do. They speak as we speak and as we think at the deepest levels of our mind. That's a technical innovation. It's the key to understanding Shakespeare. The image-making capacity normally works in complete images, which, though complex as images are designed to be, are articulate. It is when these characters break down under stress that the image-making capacity of their minds breaks down, and they utter the image fragments from the ocean floors of their minds, which have not yet been made into complete images. The ocean floor is the place of fragments of ships and airplanes. It is also the place from which lands and mountain ranges are generated. Well, the mind works in the same way, breaking down imagery to its fragments, usually under enormous stress, and building up imagery from fragments, not only to complete thoughts, but to interactive image patterns of highly complex thoughts. So the trick is to capture what the mind actually does in real life in a novel by developing techniques that allow one to do that. Okay, those are the 5 passages that I selected from the Macbeth Journal. Here's a note that I wrote while selecting these passages and thinking about them. The key to writing a good prose novel is to realize that we humans are a storytelling people and that we tell one story at a time. The key to writing a good poetic novel is to realize that we humans are a thinking people and that we think at many levels and on many topics at the same time. This, to me, explains the great split in the novel writing community in the modernist era, now 100 years ago in the 1920s. The storytellers had been honing their craft, the realist novel, to the point where it was far away from the way in which we humans think our way through the minute, the day, the hour, and the life. The modernists decided that something was wrong in the way the novel was claiming to record the human experience. The modernists saw the novel not as a mode of explaining the human condition, as if we already had the answer to the question of what it is to be a human being, but rather they saw the novel, the one that had not yet been formed and written, as a means of exploring the human condition, of attempting to figure out what it is to be human. That is what set off the search for a new form for the novel, a poetic form for the novel, a search which left them restless. Wow, I'm going to say that again. A search which left them restless. Left Conrad and Virginia Woolf and others wondering whether they had found the ideal form for the poetic novel, or would ever find it. That is the task that I set for myself, to develop a form for the poetic novel. Now over 20 years and 29 novels and 2 novellas ago. It is a quest in which I'm still very much involved. Well, to access this journal, the Macbeth Journal, for free on my website, go to johnpassfield.ca, all one word. Go to Journals and click on the Macbeth icon. And lastly, thank you for watching this video.